The Chicago Bears just suffered one of the worst losses of the season, in a season that's largely been a struggle for many Bears fans. Even though this season was all about, proving a couple things and developing and setting a foundation, it's been a rough season of losses for the Chicago Bears. If we've lost a franchise record 9 games in a row. We're going to talk about our takeaways from that last loss and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
All right, so the first thing that I do want to talk about on today's episode, by the way, I'm Haize. Welcome to the channel. This is Chicago Bears Central. Thank you for joining. And that is Matt Eberflus did say that there were some internal discussions about potentially sitting Justin Fields in that second half of that loss last night against the Lions. Now, he did say that it was conversations between him, the staff, and Justin Fields before each drive to decide whether he was going to play or not or sit. And, the fact of the matter is, he said this: if he's healthy and good to go, he's going. And I think that's a mindset of Justin Fields as well as the team. Like, as bad as last night's loss was, and we're going to get into that, it's just terrible loss. Justin Fields is a competitor. And even when you see things like him talking to Chase Claypool over the side after Claypool kind of had a blow up and stuff there, it all makes sense, right? And, that's kind of one of the things that I do want to talk about as well. And we'll get into that as far as the takeaways is Chase Claypool and his frustrations, how they are very valid. Justin Fields being sacked 55 times already on the season, on pace to be sacked 60 times this season, just depending on how well they do next game. It's been a frustrating season of just lack of protection from Fields. And, while some of that is him holding on to the ball, it's a combination between that and his offensive line just not being what it is. All the injuries we have on that offensive line have really sucked out the life of this team over the course of the season. But, the fact that Justin Fields has made as much as he has, that he hasn't missed more games because of injury, I at least take as it's honestly shocking considering how many times he's sacked, how abused he's just been. And one of the biggest things that this team does need to do in this offseason is improve the protection for Justin Fields. They need to protect that asset the best they can. Justin Fields is right now the motor of the Chicago Bears offense. And he is the most exciting player and what just brings in so many casual eyes and things and everything when it comes to the Bears. And he has to be on the top of his game, and we have to keep him upright and as healthy as possible. So that's got to be one of the things that Ryan Poles has to focus on next season, is improving that offensive line in a meaningful way. And they tried some things this season, bringing in some veterans. None of the veterans that they signed really had the impact or were able to stay on the field as long as probably what they expected when they made the signings. And this team is going to have to go in, make some adjustments, and figure out what they need to do with this offensive line to just play better overall. So, with that being said, let's get into some of the takeaways from last night's game. And one of those is kind of what I just already alluded to. Justin Fields needs to be protected better. 55 sacks on the season for him, tied for 12th most in a single season. As much as Justin Fields is close to breaking the single season QB rushing record, we got to also keep in mind and keep our eyes focused on the fact that, hey, they have not protected this quarterback very well. And very much over the course of this game, one of the biggest takeaways is that it was a complete breakdown from us in every aspect of the game, basically last night. Every facet of a football game, the Bears had a breakdown in. And, while I do think that Justin Fields should have been pulled from the game, that is my personal opinion, it says a lot about him and his mindset as a competitor that he did not want to be pulled out of that game. He was not going to allow it, but this team has to do better protecting him because things broke down, but the defense broke down as well, allowing for 260 some odd rushing yards, just allowing the Detroit Lions to really do whatever they want. 265 rushing yards did this team had. Jared Goff with 3 touchdowns, them as a team with 2 rushing touchdowns. That team did whatever they wanted to do against the Bears. And we had, like I said, it was probably our biggest breakdown of a game in both facets, every facet of the game that we've seen so far this season. And honestly, it was a disgusting output to see as a Bears fan, as somebody who is a lifelong Bears fan, is going to ride for this team no matter what. It was a disgusting loss last night. And then as well as that, Braxton Jones and Riley Reif they got completely blown up in that game. We know that this offensive line came in with injuries and they suffered even more. Tevin Jenkins going down again. But Braxton Jones and Riley Reif were just absolutely terrible. This is not good. They got bullied. They got abused. They got everything. They did not provide very much protection at all. And while I do think I like Braxton Jones over the course of the season, and I said it before, he in the second half of the season only allowed 3 sacks, but he allowed 3 sacks by himself just last night, doubling that second half output. He's a young guy, and I do still believe overall in his potential on this team. But listen, some serious things have to happen. Now, one of the things that I also take away from this game that I alluded to earlier is that Chase Claypool was upset. If you guys saw him over on the sideline, he got into it with the wide receiver coach. He threw his helmet. Justin Fields came over to him and calmed him down, but he has every right to be upset. You get moved to this team. You hope for more opportunities. You are the number one wide receiver right now with Darnell Mooney being out. And at some point, Chase Claypool was just used as a decoy down the field. He didn't have much. And, let's be clear here as well. That was Justin Fields' worst game as a passer I've probably seen from him. And as great as Justin Fields is, and as much as he did damage in that first quarter running wise, it was abysmal passing offense. And Chase Claypool had every right to be frustrated by the schemes, by the plays that were called, by everything. That was just, like I said, it was a complete breakdown in every facet of the game. And so, Chase Claypool being upset, every right to be. Now, I do think things are going to improve for him. His place in the offensive lineman, just in general, him being better utilized in the offense and having more plays ran for him. But at the end of the day, it's this. You traded for this guy. You gave up your own second-round pick that would have been basically like a low first-round pick for all intents and purposes, considering how bad the Bears have been on this back half of the season, not winning any games. But while I don't think that Claypool should have made the scene that he did, his frustration is absolutely understandable. He's been a Bear for now 2 months. His involvement in the offense has seemingly gotten worse where it should have been increasing because of the injuries and everything going on there. It's going to be hard to salvage this season, right? But this offseason, they have to do a better job at incorporating Chase Claypool. They have to work on the chemistry between him and Justin Fields. They have to do that. This guy is a weapon that should be used down the field. Now, albeit we know we don't have the wide receiver core that we even thought we were coming into the season with the injuries that we've had. But on top of that, it's just been a disappointing year as far as passing wise for the most part. They need to fix that in this offseason. This team is going to have to do some major work to not be so run heavy and run reliant are very different things. And I talked about this before. This team is always going to be a run heavy team as long as they have Montgomery and Khalil Herbert, and they should be one of the best 1-2 punches as far as running backs in the league. They should be. You have the number one rushing offense for a reason, but they have to not be so run reliant all the time and be run heavy, right? But incorporate your passing game a little bit more. Get creative in what you do down the field. They have to find a way to do this. And then the last takeaway, the Bears defense just did not seem prepared for what the Lions were going to do. They came into this game and it seemed like they weren't coached well. They weren't prepared well. They weren't anything. And that is such a far cry from where this defense was at one point, where maybe not having the skill to execute all the time did seem prepared and was a better second half team for a large part of the season. All that has gone away. And so, it is what it is there. Some things have to improve with this season. And we only got one game left to improve those things. But in this offseason, this team, this coaching staff has a lot to rebuild, not only in bringing in new talents and building up the team talent-wise that way, but just rebuilding just some of the confidence of other players, some of the way that certain players are used. They have to look to improve a lot of those things in this offseason. Now, one of the things that we're also watching out for is, can the Bears get the number one overall pick? And right now, their destiny's in their own hands to a certain degree. They would need the Texans to win in the last week of the season and us to lose in the last week of the season. With the way the Bears have played, considering they're going up against the Vikings, it definitely looks like the Bears are definitely going to be able to get the loss needed in that game. But, with that being said, it's just this, like, if the Bears can get the number one overall pick, they can only trade down so much lower. People have pointed out that Seattle, them having a pick that's probably going to be around 4 and another one that's going to be between 12 and 15, may be a trade partner for the Chicago Bears in which they can still get Carter or Will Anderson Jr. if they were able to move down that low and pick up another pretty high first-round pick as well. I don't know the likelihood of or what percentages I'd put on getting a trade with the Seahawks done, but I will put this in there. Right now, we hold the number 2 overall pick almost outright. A loss to Minnesota is going to guarantee us having the second overall pick. But you pair that with a Houston Texans win, and the Bears will have the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Now, what that means that they could do, it's getting that number 1 overall pick opens up a lot for the Chicago Bears and just trade down ability, still getting quite a great young player. We'll see. There are going to be a lot of teams that want Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, and they're going to look at the Bears, possibly trading with the Chicago Bears at that number 1 overall position to guarantee them getting that player. And we'll see what the Bears can do. If the Bears do stick with the second overall pick, it does change some things. I still think that they should not trade out of a position if it means costing them Will Anderson Jr. or Jalen Carter, but we'll see what Ryan Poles has in store. And by the way, with that being said, this is probably going to be the last week of the daily content the way that you guys have seen it. Next week, we are going to kick up our free agency conversation, our free agent talks and targets there. And we're going to start talking a little bit more about the draft as well as we start gearing this channel more towards the off-season content. It's been a great season. You guys have gotten us over 4,000 subscribers in a down year in which the Bears have only gotten 3 wins. We can't wait to see what we do over the offseason and hopefully covering a much improved Bears team next season. And we want to thank you for this journey. Make sure you're following us at Chi Bear Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, chicagobearcentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text and or voicemail, the number to do so is 773-242-9336. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related because of you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, bear down. Love you guys. And peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.